I give the floor to my dear friend, Søren Brier, internationally known as semiotician, and is professor at Copenhagen Business School. Please.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with other transdisciplinarians, and thank you to Prof. Niculescu for inviting me. Like you, I have for the last 30 years been working on or towards transdisciplinary models. I finished a book 10 years ago called Cybersemiotics, which is my attempt to make such a transdisciplinary model. And it was about the same time that I got aware of Prof. Niculescu's work, and we started to exchange views and interact in different ways. And I am at present teaching transdisciplinary philosophy of science at the business school. I've done that at the library school also, and at a veterinary and agricultural university. So this lecture is principal philosophy of science lecture. It's a philosophy of science view, and it's very much about my trouble coming from the sciences, like Niculescu, but I'm coming from biology, he's coming from physics, and why it is so difficult to envision transdisciplinarity from that place. I think Heinrich Hertz, one of the big classical physicists, expresses very well the problem when you look at it from a scientific point of view, in a physicalistic worldview. What do you do? How do you get out to the world from consciousness? And how are you going to understand yourself from there? He wasn't aware that he had to change his whole ontology. We have read Niculescu's work, you can see like Peirce that he's working very consciously with the ontology, that we have to rethink the place on which we stand to produce the knowledge we have. So I think one of our great problems is dualism. I was starting in biology over here in the natural sciences, where we know a world of information, energy, forces, matter, and universal laws, where culture is in the way. We try to get rid of culture, get out of culture, to find these transdisciplinary laws. And I was working with behavioral sciences, with animals, but I came upon this problem of the animal mind, and did animals actually have a consciousness? Did they have a personality? So I spent 3 years in psychology over here. Let's see, there was. And it was such a shock for me. It was a completely different world. They had different worldviews, different concepts, and it made me wonder what was the difference. I mean, where was I coming from? Because you always think that the discipline you're coming from is realities in itself. So I discovered that over here we don't have any concept of experience or meaning, but over here it's all meaning, culture, and communication, and nature is an interesting concept that changes over time, where we consider nature to be real reality and cannot change. And of course there's some communication over these things, over these two worlds, and sometimes we have talked about a science war, so we compete whose reality is the most real. But the major problem for me as a biologist is there's no common reality between the two worlds. We don't have a common ontology. So just to draw this circle is new, you can say, from each of the worlds. And especially as a biologist, there's really no concept of living systems in not any of these worlds. And the big problem was the theory of evolution that actually claims that there's a development from here to there, I'm not good at this, sorry. And how did we do that? Now, the problem here was classical science and classical positivism, objective logical positivism that is looking at the world and epistemology as a logical machine, and had this very deep idea of objective knowledge that could be produced. And that was destroyed in philosophy of science by Karl Popper's critical rationalism and his fallibilism, where he said you cannot prove scientific theories, you can test them, you can improve them, but they will never, in the end, be proved. Knowledge is always open. And Thomas Kuhn realized that we always have a philosophical framework, a paradigm in which we produce our knowledge. So many people have tried ever since to solve this problem. I mean, here, see if we can do that. Well, here's a classical physical view. I mean, physics is the most basic science. It's very close to reality, and reality is, well, in the old time it was matter, then it turned into energy with Einstein, and now information has come in with Wheeler, the information computational view, where everything is a computational thing, the human mind, culture, nature, are all computational processes. And the world is built upon that, and so if you look for the cause for anything, for instance, for what I'm saying, then you find the cause in my brain, and that can again be described in chemistry and in the end in physics. So explanation is reduction to the law, to the basic laws. Now in system theory, they try to solve some of these problems, because in this system, you cannot explain why living beings behave in another way than physical, chemical systems or technical systems. Why do robots, why don't they have any experience? Why don't robots have a consciousness? And our language is emerging here at this level, and again consciousness up here. Now the system science and cybernetics, they believe that we have emergence, that we have a process that make new qualities appear here. That's only possible again if you change ontology down here into a ontology that believes that the world is alive somehow, an organic system. But the counter movement, of course, is constructivism up here from the humanities, that say that language is the most fundamental reality as such. So everything else is constructed out from language and culture. So you get radical constructivism, postmodernism, but they have to give up the idea of truth, the search for truth, and therefore the whole idea of science as such, and that's quite a great price to pay, especially if you can construct away global warming. That would be very nice. I really hope they're right, these guys, but I don't think the global warming will go away if we call it something else. So these days there's a competition between those people and the great industry behind the information computational paradigm that is moving from the natural science, from technology into the social science and the humanities. On the other hand, the semiotic views of science that traditionally in Europe started in the humanities and linguistics into understanding culture, but in the United States started from here, about here, with Charles Sanders Peirce from the natural sciences. I'm part of the group that had developed a biosemiotics, exactly because we didn't want to understand living beings as machines. And so if it's not machines, what is them? It's not human beings with an internal soul. So what kind of model can we then make of making sense of living beings? But if semiotics just comes from language, everybody knows what a sign is. But if it's a fundamental concept, what is a sign then? I mean, this is not a pipe. It's a sign of a pipe. You cannot smoke it. So Bazar has to carry his own pipe to get out and smoke. Well, you can do it in your imagination, that's true. So signs have access to consciousness, to our experience. So he can dream about the pipe he hasn't smoked for an hour now, and so signs are something very strange. I mean, how can it get from there into the mind of Bazarab and evoke emotions in him? It's a fantastic process. My great hero is Charles Sanders Peirce, who's the greatest American philosopher lived, who made a transdisciplinary semiotics. And he did that by making an ontology that evolves around the sign, a triadic sign. So the sign has a representamen, which could be if you smell smoke here, and you think, oh, what can that be? It must be a sign for fire. And your interpretation would be, run, this is dangerous, we have to get out of here. So that would be your interpreter. So he postulated that every sign is such a triadic process. But in order for this to work, he had to change a lot of ontology here in very different ways. I mean, first of all, he started in Phenomenology, and you would say that's the problem of materialism, that it never gets to experience as some kind of reality at all. You also had to leave the machine to a spontaneous, active world, which is much closer to modern quantum field theory, where matter is never quiet, but always jumping, and virtual particles can make whole universes within the quantum time of Planck. He also went away from atomism to a field theory of matter, inspired by Aristotle. And he went away from a mechanical idea of evolution into a very generalized idea of love, agapism, we call it. And he is very close to system science in that he believes life is a basic quality of reality as such. And then he, long before Popper, produced a philosophy of science, fallibilism, that keeps science open all the time, and believed that social praxis is the meaning of different science. And finally, he was actually part of developing classical logic, but he developed it further and said that logic is not this absolute system that the Greeks imagined, the logos of the world, but that it's a developing rationality, and therefore he said logic is actually semiotic, and that may be one of the greatest things he did. So he believed that logic is not a mechanical information stream, but a developing and relational reasoning process. And that's not only going on inside the heads of human beings or in culture, but also in nature. So he's shifting from looking at nature either as a machine or a computer, as to a self-organizing rationality developing in interaction with the human beings as such. And that's quite a new view, and very difficult for many classical scientists to accept. So he changed into a triadic worldview. So we started with the problems with the dualistic worldview. It's interesting, there are actually three great scientists and philosophers who work with three worlds. Roger Penrose is one of them. He imagined that he had this, there's a physical world, there's a mental world, and then there's a platonic world. because he's such a mathematician, he imagined that there's this eternal world of eternal mathematical forms and laws, and that's where science should end. Now, Karl Popper also had three worlds, but his third world is objective, fallibilistic knowledge. So his third world is all those theories we believe in so far, but that we cannot prove finally. So it's not a Platonic world, but it's moving. And Peirce, who inspired Popper rather much, his second world is just differences, things that we have to take into account that makes resistance, second as he calls it. And his third world then is what he calls habits and would-bes, possibilities. Again, so he is leaving this idea of absolute mathematical laws towards a more pragmatic view of process and evolution as such. So this changes the world from either a materialistic idea of a machine through the dualistic view of mind and matter that cannot interact in any way, into a semiotic view of the world as such. So we've always understood semiotics as a science of something that is real, but the sign in itself is not real. And what Peirce is more saying is that the signs are the reality with which we communicate. We think, we perceive and think and reason in signs. And the reason I can get inside you from here without touching you is through signs. So the signs in my mind can touch the signs in your mind. And it's through these habits that we make us understandable as such. So he wants to place humans in a universe of science system, processes connecting mind and matter, inside and outside, transcendence and immanence, without leaving a realistic worldview. So he's not a constructivist, he's still a realist, and that's a very important point these days. I'm trying to combine him then with system science and saying, well, okay, we are in here, exactly where we are now, embodied human beings talking together in languages most of us understand, producing theories about the world. And the world is a multi-aspect reality, like Niculescu also says. So we have this aspect which is physical, and we know that our body is made out of material. It's created in the stars and distributed to us. But we also know that we have something that the stars don't have. We have life, and so the life of our body is connecting us to the life of the rest of the universe through ecology. And we know we're in a culture through our language, and that is another meaning. We the show. Oh, there was. So meaning is generated in culture, and we can study that. And then we have the experiential aspect of us, our experiential mind, our ability to imagine the pipe we haven't smoked. It's all in the mind. And this is also where our spirituality and religion springs out of our imaginative mind. And the problem here for me as a scientist, I'm now claiming that this is as real as matter, that our experiences are real. They are not, I mean, this idea my students have of subjectivity is something that doesn't exist. And I used to tell them, that's interesting because I believe every one of you have a subject. So what do you do with that if it's not real? I mean, any of you are not real. So how do we make a frame of reality if we have to include that our subjective experiences are as real as matter or culture or life? So with power here, when you put your theories here, you go out here, you can test your theories in any aspect, falsify them, get them back, rotate them, make new ones, and go out. So it's going on all the time. This is not a fixed model. They also have different time scales here. We have millions of, or billions of years. Here we have millions of years. Here we have thousands of years, and here we have decades of time. So the time concept is not, again, an absolute one, but it's all irreversible time. And you may know that in classical mechanics, time is reversible, and that's a big problem to transition from classical mechanics into thermodynamics. Lagrange's work with irreversibility, the problem that when I break the glass, I cannot make it go back again. And some of the things we do here cannot be remade because time is irreversible. And so that is the basic idea here. It's a kind of unity of science, but it's not a positivist unity of science because they got rid of all the qualitative aspects of science. And I'm teaching in these communication programs where they have to have the quantitative aspect, the economical aspect, but they also have to analyze customers' experience of goods, their wants, what makes meaning for them. If they want to go into advertising, they have to access the qualitative aspects of human beings, but they don't have a paradigm that can unite those two. And these days they're competing with each other. Right now it's the quantitative aspect that is winning and is suppressing the qualitative aspects in the business schools these days. This model doesn't pretend either to explain consciousness from science, which I think is one of our great problems these days. Penders and Hammer, for instance, try to explain the brain and the microtubule as producing consciousness. In my way, misusing quantum theory to, it's so mystical, so one mystical thing can explain another mystical thing. And it's a huge area. So much is publishing these days. There's so many conferences on consciousness, and we're still very far from making a solution on that. And I think it's because we are asking the wrong question. We're not there yet. We have to change the framework in order to understand this. So I think that's about what I would say today. Thank you for listening.
I very much appreciate your slide with the seven spheres, with poker, minerals, and perks. If you can find it fast, if not, doesn't matter.
Thank you. One more time. One more. No, back. I'll go.
No, that's three spheres.
Yeah, I'm not where they are. But they are.
After. That. So I think it would be very interesting to map on this slide also the subject, object, and the hidden third, because fits very nicely with perks. Of course, it's not the same thing.
No, not exactly.
It's not exactly the same thing, but I think it will be very nice to put not with sparrows and certainly not with popper, but with pearls, yes. It's just a small suggestion.
Well, we can try to do that. I'm still working with Q theory and universal theory and try to understand where they differ and what differences are.
The dialogue between pearls and transdisciplinary is fabulous. Yeah.